Ms. Vinita is a public speaker and a thought leader in diverse issues of nation building. She is on the board of studies of leading global institutes and a mentor to social foundations that work towards empowering women and the girl child. Ms. Vinita was recently given the Women of Excellence Award from the Indian Achievers Forum for her outstanding contributions to the field despite all hurdles. Welcome, Ms. Vinita, on our show. Ms. Vinita Hariharan, you have heard earlier panelists, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IES, as well as Dr. Ramin Goyal. And both has given their own thoughts about the independent India, the way ahead. Now, we would like to know from you, your views on the independent India, the way forward. Ms. Vinita Hariharan, please.
Thank you, Lal Goelji, for inviting me as a panelist amidst these very esteemed speakers. And it's indeed a privilege to share the panel with Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, stalwarts like Dr. C.V. Anand Bose and Dr. Raman Goyal. To begin with my thoughts on independent India at 75, it is a proud moment for us as we stand tall as a nation with all the potential and promise to become a super economy. And we also witness a resurgent and vibrant India emerging under a very strong and stable governance with promises and roadmaps laid on key pillars of governance, infrastructure, and the economy. So today, my focus would be on these three pillars as to how much we have gone ahead and how much more is left to go, because we should not just rest in our laurels, but we need to see the road ahead as well. So on the pillars, the first pillar of governance, when we talk of governance, we talk of our local self bodies. That comes to the picture at the very first instance of governance, because that is the strongest tier, third tier of governance in our country. And today, when we talk of local self-government, we have more than 250,000 gram panchayats and about 10,000 and odd urban local bodies. So predominant part of our governance structure is the Grama Panchayat. And today, in this government of the day, we have seen a huge trust given to empowering these local bodies. And the 74th Amendment of the Constitution is being implemented in letter and spirit today, with a huge devolution of funds through the 14th and 15th Finance Commission towards these rural and urban local bodies. But what needs to be done further is to capacitate these urban local bodies and to capacitate them with human resources, with the necessary wherewithal, and with the powers to mobilize resources on their own, financial resources on their own. So the Grama Panchayats and the urban local bodies needs to be empowered further to actually enact and to be able to utilize the funds that are being devolved to the 14th and 15th Finance Commission by the Government of India. Apart from that, we also need to strengthen local economic development, which is empower the urban and rural local bodies to harness local resources in their local bodies, in their community, in their surroundings, and scale it up through the value chain through the cooperative model. And I will be speaking about the cooperative model further down my thoughts today. And when we talk of governance, in the same spirit, I would like to also talk about the citizen's voice. So we have seen several initiatives being taken to crowdsource ideas such as gov.in and the Mann Ki Baat of the Prime Minister, which is extremely laudable and very, very innovative approach towards listening to the citizen's voice from the grassroots. But this kind of model has to be scaled up at the local body level, at the village level, and we need to have regularized and channelized media with last mile awareness and outreach programs in every panchayat, block, and district level, with kiosks to handle citizens, to handhold citizens on government programs, and so that the government programs gain saturation in every Grama Panchayat and in every local body. On infrastructure, we see hope for a new India where every family will have a roof over one's head, access to safe drinking water, sanitation, and affordable healthcare, digital and economic opportunities. Our roads would lead us safely to our villages and also takes us across the borders. The energies from the sun, the wind, and the water will light our homes, streets, and vehicles for sure with today's Government of India's policies. So when we talk of infrastructure, we talk of housing first. We have, with more than 15 million houses have been constructed under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana over the last 10 years. And so the housing shortage has come down considerably from 18.78 million, which was in 2012, which has come down to about 10 million today. But what we need to understand is that while the construction of housing is admirable and appreciated, but what we need to understand is the housing shortage does not really lie in the number of houses. It is there is actually an oversupply or a glut in the market as far as the MIG and HIG housing is concerned. So where the shortage lies is in the quality of housing. A large part of the housing shortage comprises slum housing. So that's what we need to address going forward to make our India slum free. So we need to work towards slum free city planning. And towards that, we need to adopt models which have been successful in states like Mumbai and states like Maharashtra, where they have successfully implemented the transfer of development rights, where builders are incentivized to provide slum housing, for which they are provided higher FSI in other areas. So that needs to be scaled up across the country. So that's another aim for us to make our cities in India slum free. Then when we come to water, in spite of being water rich, with having more than 4% of the world's water resources in India, we are still falling below the per capita requirement of, we just have 1,700 cubic meters of water availability per capita, which is below international norms. So while we are doing very good measures, such as the Jal Shakti Abhiyan, and some states like Telangana with the Mission Kakatiya, where they have renovated their traditional ponds and catchment areas, laudable efforts by the government of India and various state governments, but that needs to be scaled up and entrenched at the grassroots level. So we need to have practices like rainwater harvesting being made mandatory through the building bylaws in every urban and rural local body. So that is a way forward for our water sector to make us to make our country secure in terms of water availability, and also to improve the quality and quantity of our groundwater resources. Apart from the drive through the Mission Jal Shakti, which aims to provide household connections to all tap water connections to all households by 2022. And on sanitation, the government of the day has done a remarkable job in making our country open defecation free, which is it's a great effort by the government of India. And I still remember when I was studying at the Lee Kuan Yew School in 2010-11, my cohort, which comprised senior professionals and bureaucrats from across 80 countries of the world, they would say that your country still has manual scavenging, and I would squirm in my seat, and I wouldn't have words for that. But I really am, I salute the Prime Minister for initiating the Swachh Bharat mission and making our country more than 90% open defecation free. Extremely laudable effort by the government of India. And despite naysayers and criticisms that these toilets are not being used, it has been verified by international agencies that these toilets are being used and well put to use. And the effect of good sanitation on health and prosperity is internationally acclaimed. So therefore, we have done a good job with ODF, but we need to now focus on ODF plus, where we need to make our cities and our rural areas open, zero waste, wherein we have segregation at source, and every household practices waste segregation at source, and where none of the waste goes wasted, and we have recycling of the sewage water and the solid waste going into activities such as vermicomposting. So we need to move towards a zero waste country very soon in post 75 India. Affordable healthcare, I couldn't corroborate or I couldn't add more what Dr. Raman Goel has just stated. Being a health expert, he has given us the roadmap ahead for healthcare, but remarkable efforts by the country in sailing through the COVID pandemic, which has hit the entire globe. But we have seen India emerging despite all setbacks that we had initially. We have sailed through the COVID pandemic, but again, as we said, we should not be complacent. And the pandemic is something that we need to live with now. Going forward, we will see many more such viruses coming up and many more such healthcare emergencies hitting the country. So therefore, we need to be prepared. And I think it would be a good idea for the government of India to set up a separate ministry of pandemics. Carve out a separate department from the Department of Health, because the health ministry is a huge ministry. So we need to carve it out for specifically focusing on pandemic management and pandemic care. So towards that, I would also like to state that our healthcare spending as a percentage of GDP has gone up significantly with a large budget announcement of over 60,000 crores for the Pradhan Mantri Swasthya Yojana, as well as the additional 23,000 crores infused by the finance minister for the Atmanirbhar package. But despite that, we're still 2.5% of our GDP, whereas higher developed nations have around 8% of the GDP dedicated towards healthcare. Therefore, there is a road ahead to go in terms of spending on healthcare. And a large percentage of that spending should be on R&D, wherein we should be able to predict the onslaught of such viruses much ahead of time. And again, we need to have a focus on we need to have this governance model of saturating our urban and rural local bodies with all the healthcare requirements, just like Dr. Raman Goel just said, following the norms of healthcare, international or national norms of healthcare facilities per capita. There are these urban development policy guidelines which actually prescribe the number of hospitals, primary healthcare, secondary healthcare, tertiary healthcare that is required for a certain population size. So we need to follow those norms at least, and also be prepared for contingencies. So that's about healthcare. Then we look at roads. Of course, better roads always lead to greater prosperity. That's an internationally acclaimed theory. And we couldn't go better in terms of roads under the leadership of Honorable Nitin Gadkari ji. We are constructing, even in the lockdowns, we were constructing 36 kilometers per day of national highways. So while we've got it right with the national highways, we need to focus on our village roads and all-weather roads, connectivity for villages, and also connecting our habitations, small habitations with roads. Because today, as per statistics, more than 50% of many of the small habitations are off the road network. So we need to focus on that. Then on the renewable energy spectrum, we have done a remarkable job, and I salute the government for that. We have surpassed the Paris commitments well ahead of the 2030 deadline. So we had the power minister just announcing that 40% of our energy basket would be coming from renewable energies. Much ahead of Paris agreement, where we had declared that we would do that by 2030. Power minister says that by next year, we should be able to achieve 40% of our energy resources, power generation coming from renewable energy resources. So that's extremely laudable in terms of generation. But we need to see that the transmission and distribution and entrenchment of the practices of using renewable energy entrenched into the local bodies and into the last mile. So for that, we need to have strong bylaws, building bylaws, which prescribe perhaps compulsory adoption of a certain percentage of your household energy requirements from solar or whatever the renewable energy resource is there in the surroundings. It could be hydel, it could be solar, or it could be wind. So we need to recognize that and adopt it and entrench that into the practices of the building bylaws, and see that every household has a share of this, and so we also need to ensure that every urban local body also has a similar share of renewable energy as the national government is having at 40%. We need to see that every local body also has a 40% share of the energy basket from renewable energy. And as far as digital connectivity is concerned, BharatNet has done a remarkable job with making more than almost all of our 250,000 Grama Panchayats connected with OSP. So we need to, but digital penetration in terms of coverage is just 50%. Although we are one of the world's largest internet users, but it's just covering about 50% of the population. So that is a deprived lot, and we need to see that all our households at least has one person who's digitally literate and has digital equipment in place, especially in the post-pandemic world where education is provided largely through digital means. And in my foundation that I have launched recently, Sankasa Foundation, I have actually mobilized resources to provide help to COVID-affected families. But most of the requirements that are coming post-COVID from my home state of Kerala is for digital resources. The students don't have tabs, or they don't have digital equipment to study. So most of my resources funds are going towards provision of digital resources for studying. So the government of the day should see that they collaborate with private sector players to ensure that every household has digital equipment in place for education as well as other purposes. And in terms of prosperity, we see hope for a new India where the enterprise will win. and our resources would be harnessed and reaped. And every gram and nagar panchayat district, and so the state, will contribute significantly to the GDP and the exports of the nation. And we should go beyond just exports of diamonds and such artifacts towards exporting our handicraft, food, horticulture, and aquaculture, and also focus on indigenous resource development, which is local economic development through the cooperatives. And talking of cooperatives, it's a huge sector, and the Ministry of Cooperatives being launched recently, initiated by the Government of India, is a laudable effort. And through that, we would see a lot of effort and trust and budgetary allocation being provided to multi-state cooperatives. Which is an extremely good effort, because the cooperative movement is now focused in just 5 or 6 states, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Kerala, etc. So, but still it contributes to a large percentage of our economy, and a large percentage of agriculture credit, more than 50%, comes from the cooperative sector. Therefore, all other states should also get access to the cooperative movement. It should be brought under the cooperative umbrella, because cooperatives can play a very innovative role in understanding the needs of the last mile beneficiary, and also providing credit in a way that the outreach and the spread of the funding is much larger than what banks could do with their limited capabilities and with their restrictions with the KYC norms. Not that it's a laissez-faire credit revolution, but under the supervision of the central government, the cooperative movement would do a large benefit if you spread the umbrella beyond just credit, and marketing and agriculture, towards MSMEs, towards retail, towards insurance, and towards healthcare as well. And so, as as Robert Frost says, we have miles to go before we sleep. So we should not just rest on our laurels. We should also be self-critical. And we need to look at how our inequity is today. Actually, we have a Gini coefficient of about 35.2, with the richest 10% of the Indians owning almost 80% of the wealth. So therefore, we need to focus on providing equitable development across the nation, which is a need of the hour today. And in terms of Human Development Index, again, we are ranking 131 out of 189 countries. So we need to focus on improving our equitable spread of health and education spending. Apart from that, in agriculture, the agriculture reforms are laudable, which the Government of India has brought in terms of connecting the farmers to the market directly through the eNAM portal. But we need to see that those are, of course, we need to see that the opposition allows us to implement these reforms across the country. And also we need to see how the farmer can be connected to the market through hand-holding and training. Apart from that, we also need to be mindful of these small and marginal and landless laborers, which constitute a large percentage of the agricultural workforce. So therefore, the government needs to do more than just providing 6,000 rupees per annum for the landless and marginal farmers. We need to provide more incentives and more schemes for the landless agricultural laborers. And I would not be doing justice to my speech if I do not speak on behalf of my gender. So in the gender ranking, we are actually slipping places. We are ranking 140th among 156. So we really need to be mindful of that. And we need to have more programs focusing just on women. We do not, although we have large subsidies provided to existing programs for women beneficiaries, we do not have specific programs just for women beneficiaries in terms of enterprises or in terms of health or education. Therefore, that needs to be focused. Of course, the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao has been a great andolan, but we need to have many more such programs focusing exclusively on women and empowerment of women, political and economic empowerment of women. And so we really need to work on a mission mode to overcome all these challenges, but we still have a hope that India would emerge strong with the strong governance frameworks that are being set in place by the government of the day. So there is a small poem, if you just allow me 5 seconds, I would just recite that, which I've written for a New India. So my country is diverse, it is rich, it is strong. My country has the tallest mountains, the longest rivers, the deepest oceans, and the greenest forests. She has teeming millions, young and the old, filled with hope, pride, and joy. She has struggled and grappled with poverty, disease, and hunger, and is now rising beyond. But she still worries over the safety of her daughters, her farmers, and her fields, for the health of her children, the climate, and her poor. But she is hopeful of a new horizon, a new India, where the rich-poor divide is erased, the sick can be treated, the old can be cared for, where every family has a home and a heart, and every child learns and plays under the blue sky and the orange sun. A new India where all her people live life in peace and happiness. This would be my imagination for a new India. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vinita Hariharan, for giving your views and ending with a very beautiful poem. But what she highlighted, she has given big because she is in the policy making and associated with the government. She has highlighted almost every field whichsoever is required today. And she says, although the government is doing well in many, many fields, and she has given examples that how even the Gram Panchayats have been connected with this government policies, how this Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao program was implemented, how the Swachh Bharat, even this defection-free country. She says it's a long journey, but we have come out with so much things which we have done. She has given few of the things which she wants that it should be implemented. One, she says about the slum-free country. Now, for that, she says how the Maharashtra model Maharashtra has done by giving some incentives to the builders, extra FSIs, etc. Same model to be implemented so that no slum should be there anywhere in India. She also mentioned about the rainwater harvesting, and she has talked about the Telangana model. So she says that states are doing, but only thing is it should be implemented across the country. So she is of that, and she mentioned about the zero waste. That has to be a thing which we must see to it, that we must keep a zero waste policy. She emphasized one thing which I would like to highlight. She says there should be a separate ministry for pandemic. She says, although whatsoever Dr. Ramin Goyal has mentioned, that is there, but we must have a separate ministry for the pandemic so that these types of pandemic, whenever they comes, it should not be under the same bureaucratic setup, because the health ministry is having so much work. So it should be exclusive ministry for the pandemic. And she says that the GDP expenditure of the healthcare is about 2.5. It should increase because the developed countries having about approximately 8% of the thing. She says we are committed for the sustainable development, and we have even crossed the limit whatsoever is fixed for the Paris conventions or the Paris commitment what the government has given. And she also mentioned about the digital India, how the digital India is taking place and how we are connecting everywhere but it's still long way. And she says all the problem because of the pandemic, everyone requires at least one device and the proper interconnections. She says their government is trying, but it's still long way. And she suggested the private entrepreneurs and the government should come together and see to it, it should be given to everyone. And she mentioned about the cooperatives things, and where she says that this cooperative movement, which is very successful in 4 or 5 states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, etc., and even Kerala, but it should be implemented the entire country. So she has completed almost. And one more point she has mentioned about the landless agriculturists. She says that 6,000 rupees is less. It should be increased at least for them. And in the last, she wanted to talk about the women, and she says the women empowerment is taking place, but still it is not that much. It should be exclusively policy, should be exclusively for the women so that their development is required. And she has quoted the famous Robert Frost poem, "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, and I have promised to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." But she says that's only possible if we all come together. Although government of the day is doing lots of works, but still we have to go. Thank you very much, Ms. Vinita Hariharan, for giving your views.